Hello friends, welcome back. Let's continue with the code of our 2021 Classic Themes child theme. I have created a JavaScript file in the assets/js folder named customize-preview.js. In this file, we have the wp.customize object. So if we go to the handbook here and under tools for improved user experience handbook page, there you can see the various JavaScript related stuff. We are using the post message for settings previewing in this example. Here you can see the changes if it's a refresh and it's refreshing the entire preview panel. And in the next one, it's a post message. So it won't refresh the page. It directly applies the changes to the preview panel using JavaScript. And for that, we have to enqueue a JavaScript file using the customize preview unit action. Why this action particularly? Because that JavaScript file is only being used on the customizer panel in the customizer view and not in the front end. In the functions.php file, I have used the customize preview unit hook, registered a function and then added a WP script. You already know about the WP scripts argument, including handle, the path, the dependency, the version, and whether you want to enqueue it in the header or footer. Note there are two dependencies, the customize preview and the customize selective refresh. As I want to load these files after this two to be able to use the wp.customize method in our JS file. Now in the JavaScript file, the WP customize is the main JavaScript object and it provides the functionality to modify the changes we want to preview. In layman terms, with WP customize, we have to provide a callback function with the display date, which is a setting name, not the control, but the setting name along with its function that will be executed for the display date whenever the display date has been modified or updated. So this function will be executed with the display date element. Then on the display date variable element, we are binding the function and the function will receive a value, the value of the checkbox. Then on the display date variable element, we are binding the function and that function will receive a value, the value of the checkbox. Then I made the call to this utility function. Essentially, I'm getting all the elements using the query selector all because there is a list of the posts. All the posts will display the published post categories and tags and everything, and it hides and shows the elements of all the posts. If it's a false value, then I have to hide it by setting the display style to none, and if it's true, then simply set the display to block. So now if I go and uncheck the display tag, the display date, it will hide it. It's not removing the data, it's just hiding it to present to the user how it will look. If I go to the database and refresh, you can see here the display tags have been set to 0. It's in a serialized format. So the display category is the 1 and the display date is the 1. Okay, so that's why they are displaying. So basically this way we can manage and we can add customized settings to manage the previewing of content. This is the basics of the JavaScript API. You can always go through this handbook page here and it explains very well how we can manage the preview part and the JavaScript objects and everything. And you can also go through the customizer JavaScript API. Using this, you can hide sections and panels using JavaScript. You can learn about WP customize object on this page. Now let's talk about the footer settings. I have added two options to the content options panel. I have added a setting for the copyrighted text. Now here I have used the prefix just for a demo purpose. I'm going to save this setting into an option as an individual option, not as a theme modification option. And then I have provided a transport method, which is post message. If you don't provide a transport method, by default, it's a refresh, but I have added a partial for this. Similarly, for the sanitize callback function, I have used WP cases post, which will do escaping. But in the text area, we are allowing users to add some HTML tags. And the WP cases post allows the whitelisted HTML elements like anchor tags. When we do escapes for security purposes, we do want to allow some of the whitelisted HTML elements. So that's why I have provided a sanitize callback. So when it's saved into the database, it will be escape and then capability as edit theme options. And the dirty, just like we saw about the enable or disable of the publish button, then I have added a control for it and passed the setting ID, then the section to which it belongs, and then label, description, and type. I have used the text area because I want to use the text area for managing the copyright section. Here now I have implemented the selective refresh with the add partial method of the selective refresh class. When we add a partial, we have to provide for which setting we are adding the partial and what the selector is that the setting is targeting in the preview of the HTML. So if you go to the footer.php, you can see this powered by. So this is my selector where I want to update the content right from the setting. So in the preview panel in this class, the content will be replaced. And then the render callback function. In the render callback function, I have simply used the WP cases post for the get option. Now you might also wonder like the same things will get the options from the options table and what it's like when we make the changes to the customizer. It won't be saved in the database until we publish it. So how it's going to work? So as I talked about the filter for these modes, similarly get options will also have a similar filter. In the function, if you scroll down, there is a pre-option filter. This filter will be used by the customizer API to return the added given inputs by the user into the customizer instead of fetching the real value from the database. Check out the network panel now. If I make changes here, you will see that a request has been sent, and in the payload you can see what settings have been customized and what the value is. This customize option will be used by the customizer API. And if it's a theme mod, that is if the setting type is a theme mod, then it will use a theme mod filter. So when we make a get option call, it will update the settings. So instead of using JavaScript, we are updating the live preview of the copyright text using PHP selectively. Maybe this use case may not sound very applicable, but just for demo purposes, this is how selective refresh works. So generally selective refresh is there if you don't want to manage two different implementations, like doing a preview using a JavaScript file and also implementing the same in a separate PHP file. Instead, we can do it through PHP, only using selective refresh. So we don't have to repeat the same logic in JavaScript and PHP files separately. In some cases, we can use selective refresh, but selective refresh will make an AJAX call and only refresh a particular part of a site, not the entire site. But in the post message, it will directly update the markup using JavaScript and there are no network requests or AJAX calls. It will be much faster than the selective refresh, and selective refresh is faster than the default refresh. It updates the content of the selector we passed. Similarly, you can check the tools for improved user experience section to learn about other arguments of the selective refresh. For example, the container inclusive argument decides if we want the entire container to refresh or just its children. Then there is render callback argument which we have seen. Then the fallback refresh argument decides if we want this control to do a full refresh if the partial is not found in the document. Now let's see the default refresh transport method. If I simply comment this out now, make changes here, and if I refresh the page, so now you will see the entire page has been replaced when I make some changes to the content options footer. You can see that the entire preview panel is blinking or its opacity is changing, indicating that the entire preview panel is being refreshed. If you go to the doc tab of the inspector, and it will return the entire page content into the response. So this is the refresh method, but the refresh method is not always a good option. Only if there are no other ways or we cannot update the panel, either using JavaScript post message method or using selective refresh. If those two options are not useful for particular settings or particular scenarios, then we have to rely on the refresh. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Jai WordPress.